Israeli President Reuven Rivlin made a personal appeal today to the UK's Prince Charles to intervene in a case involving an Orthodox Jewish family in the UK who want to bring their severely disabled child for care to Israel. Now, 2-year-old Alta Fixler of Manchester is permanently brain damaged and in a coma. Now, doctors at the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital recommended she be taken off life support systems. They've been supported by the UK High Court, which has also denied a parent's request for transfer to Israel. Here's what Alta's father, Abraham Fixler, had to say.
As you all have seen the story about my daughter, a very sad story, I reach out to every one of you who is watching this and ask, whoever can help and add, in any way possible, to simply raise your voice, your power and your brain, and not to rest or to sit quietly by, and to act so she can come to Israel, and to continue living the life that she deserves, just like everyone else deserves.
Well, with me in studio for more is international affairs correspondent Batya Leventhal. Certainly a tragic story, Batya, and I really had to simplify what is a very complex case dealing with very complex issues. Maybe give us a little more detail on what's involved here.
We're talking about a 2-year-old child that is not conscious, that has got life support and tubes connected to her that are helping her breathe, giving her oxygen, as well as giving her food and water every single day. She is technically, by the UK government, declared as brain dead. And this is quite an interesting thing in terms of the laws that would apply in Israel. But a very, very heartbreaking case, as you mentioned, tragic, that this young child is on such intense life-saving mechanisms in order to keep her going. And the UK court actually ruling that they are, because her situation is irreversible, because there's no treatment, that they can end up prolonging her life or necessarily getting her out of that vegetative state, that the next course of action is to actually withdraw the life support system that she has helping her at the moment.
Right. Now, they want to transfer to Israel, presumably because they believe she will be able to be kept alive. We should mention Israeli law is very influenced by traditional Jewish religious law in cases like this. But here, even in Israel, this is a very complex and divisive issue in some ways.
For sure, and there's no denying that, in particular when we're looking at the comparisons between the UK and Israel, that Israel definitely has a much stronger mix of church and state in terms of their laws. And one of the laws that they have here is called the Patient Nearing Death Act, that came into law in about 2005, which states that if medically you can determine that an adult or a child is expected to live longer than 6 months, either them, if they're in a state that they can make the decision, or their guardians can decide whether or not to prolong their life, or whether or not to take away the life-saving support that will, in fact, stop prolonging their life and keeping them breathing and keeping them active. So that's a very interesting law. It's also, as you mentioned, highly disputed among different rabbis, different sects within Israel itself. But the reality is we're talking about a family that's got dual citizenship. As you heard the father speaking in Hebrew there, appealing to the Israeli audience. And this is reaching a diplomatic effort as well, where you've got not only Reuven Rivlin, but you also had just before him Israel's health minister, Israel Katz, reaching out to his counterpart in Britain to say, please allow, we are willing to take the child in, please allow them to transport them in the UK, saying that they are against moving the child because it's just going to prolong her discomfort and it might make the situation worse for her, although we do know that from the doctors on the ground there that that's not the case. She can easily be moved across without that being an issue, and the family is willing to pay for it. And there's been a website that has been set up where they've raised about £300,000. That's about roughly $400,000, if I'm not mistaken, in order to make sure that she does have the funds to come across, thinking that here in Israel, because they'll be able to keep the child on life support and on these mechanisms that will be able to prolong her life, it will be a much better state. Obviously, they're being told in the UK that because her situation is irreversible, they need to pull the plug.